Hey, how's it going, guys? So we're back with more Star Citizen videos. If you're new channel, welcome. So I actually watched a video by the TheAstroHistorian, and by the way, this video is by the TheAstroHistorian, so shout out and credit goes to the TheAstroHistorian for this video. And it was talking about the big cruisers, the big ships in the UEE Navy. And a lot of the ships I did know, like the RSI Polaris, Idris, the Aegis Hammerhead, things like that. But there were some ships that he did mention that I did hear once, but I didn't really know about them. And one of them was known as the RSI Bengal carrier that was mentioned in there. But I was like, I'm not really familiar with that. And what do you know? The next video that came up next is the RSI Bengal carrier, and I decided to just jump right into it. So this one is called the RSI Bengal carrier, apex predator of the stars, Star Citizen lore, and again by the TheAstroHistorian. So without anything else, let's just jump into the video.
My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to The AstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today we'll be talking about the darling of human ship design of the Star Citizen universe, the RSI Bengal carrier.
Oh, that's cool in the background. Looks like ice is forming them.
Created it. Before we get into that, I want to thank y'all for your continued support. 20,000 subscribers. This is nuts, 20K subscribers and growing. That's all because of you right now. If you've been
Wow, so this video came out when he had 20,000 subscribers, because right now he's at like 36 or 37,000. So he's still continuing to grow. So that's great.
enjoying these videos, be sure to hit that like button, as it really seems to help. And if you haven't already subscribed, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay up to date on the latest videos. If you want to go that extra mile, we also have YouTube memberships and Ko-fi for financial donations. Lastly, if you want early, ad-free access to these videos, visit out how the big cat of the UEE came to be.
Sorry, I have to skip that a little
Bengal and its creation, we have to understand the context of the world it was created in. The late 29th century was a chaotic time for humanity. Almost a century had passed since the fall of the Mezzers, and while things were getting better domestically, the military was still floundering, as it was in the middle of a major swap-over from the old Mezzer-era weapons, armor, and ships to new up-to-date ones. For centuries, Aegis Dynamics was effectively the only ship manufacturer for humanity's military. They were closely tied to the dictatorial Mezzer regime, so when the Mezzers fell, Aegis was only just able to survive due to the fact that their ships were the literal backbone of the UEE fleet. However, they lost all new contracts entirely, meaning no new Aegis ships would be delivered to the UEE for a long time.
Oof, that's a big blow.
This also left the UEE with a problem. Their fleet was aging, with no new prospects on the horizon. Companies like Anvil Aerospace and Crusader Industries were picking up the slack from the loss of Aegis, but there was still a large gap in new capital ship development. And to make things worse, the Vanduul were starting to raid UEE space once again. While ships like the Javelin and the Hornet were leaps and bounds better at combating the resurgent Vanduul, most of the Navy's fleet was woefully outdated in design, in some cases by several centuries. Now,
okay, so this is what I'm getting so far. Because of that huge contract loss, they're not getting new and better capital ships. I mean, the ones they have right now, sure, is a little outdated and things like that, but it's good at combating like, small cruisers and fighters, things like that. But it sounds like they have a huge problem against really big capital ships, as you saw against the Vandal just a few moments ago. So that's the thing. So if any big targets come out, then they're pretty much at a huge disadvantage, but they can still manage and hold their own against certain size cruisers and fighters. So this is a huge problem, but it's always a contract. It's always a corporation who's not willing to cooperate. Hope they've solved this.
Clarify, while the UEE uses very old designs of ships, no ships in the UEE Navy are hundreds of years old. The older designs of the ships, like the Idris, which are still produced in the modern era, are made with modern construction techniques and updated systems. The issue with these ships is not their age, it's their design. The Aegis was designed to keep the peace in a post-Tavaran War UEE. Its design emphasized operating alone against, at best, ruggedized civilian militia ships, not alien raiding parties who specialize in melee combat with their ships. The fleet was starting to modernize before the fall of the Mezzers, with the Javelin built in 2690. However, older ships, like the much discussed but never seen battleships and cruisers of the fleet, were no match for the rapid and close-range fighting style of the Vanduul. The Navy needed to modernize their fleet and change their doctrine to adapt to the Vanduul, and to do this, an old friend of the Navy offered their services, RSI. You see, ever since the Second Tawaran War,
RSI came in clutch.
Military contracts, most of their ships being replaced with new Aegis designs. While RSI had continued to work with government scientific bureaus and the Terraforming Oversight Committee, the company had shifted most of its focus towards commercial and civilian contracts. In fact, RSI was so divorced from the machinations of the UEE that they actively used the failures of the Meza regime to make themselves look good. When the 12-year-old child laborer Anthony Tanaka was shot dead on the factory floor by the Mezzer advocacy for refusing to work, RSI very publicly began to distance themselves from the Mezzers. The CEO acknowledged the sad death and ordered a complete evaluation of all RSI facilities to make sure that they were adhering to all health and safety standards. This would garner a response, with a few months later, Ulysses Mezzer released damning and incontrovertial evidence of corporate malfeasance to news orgs, claiming that the CEO at the time, Gedema, had embezzled federal finances for personal use. The case languished in the courts for years, but the constant barrage of quote-unquote evidence forced Gedema to step down. Ever since, RSI and the UEE had been butting heads politically, so when the Mezzers were overthrown, RSI came out of the feud with even more power and prestige, having openly challenged the Mezzer regime, yet still with no military contracts. However, during the first half of the 29th century, they made inroads with the military, suggesting the use of their extensive and purpose-built heavy shipyards around the L points of Earth to construct capital-class ships, and around the middle of the century, both sides came to an agreement. RSI would take the place of Aegis, building the next generation of capital ships, this time with heavy emphasis on fighting the Vanduul.
Huge
the crown
score
jewel of this
for
agreement
RSI
was the design and construction of a new supercarrier-class ship, which would be dubbed the Bengal class. The Bengal carrier is supremely massive, at almost a kilometer long. This is to house squadrons of fighters and other support craft over 2 separate decks of the ship. The main hangar deck is simply massive. The interior space of a Bengal flight deck is large enough to house an Idris frigate, if it weren't for the openings being too small for an Idris to navigate inside. This denotes the main purpose of the Bengal. It's a carrier ship. Its job is to house the main force of any fleet against the Vanduul, the flexible squadrons of large and small ships such as the F-7A Hornets, F-7C Lightnings, Gladiator bombers, and more, which all act as a force multiplier for the ship. However,
so this thing is good for reinforcing.
It sports impressive firepower as well. Bengals come standard with 20 twin-linked Size 7 anti-spacecraft ballistic cannons loaded with flak rounds, and at least a dozen remote phalanx point defense Gatlings and Beehive missile pods. But the true threat of the ship comes with its turret of 4 bearing shipbuster railguns,
look at that,
which are designed for engaging enemy carriers and the much-feared Vanduul Kingship. To give you context, a shipbuster railgun is said to be able to core a cruiser-class ship and below with a single shot. Since the Javelin,
it's like a
UEE
Death
naval
Star
ships
laser
have been designed with 3 major factors to help them against the aggressive Vanduul threats: thick armor, sloping hulls, and massive firepower. This is because the Vanduul favor close-in fighting with heavy weapons and, whenever possible, melee attacks. Yes, even with their capital ships. As we already stated, the Bengal has impressive firepower between its squadrons and armaments, but it also has impressive armor. One source stated that the armor of the ship is 34.4 inches or 92 centimeters thick. To put that in perspective, the Yamato, the most armored battleship in human history, had its thickest armor at 25.6 inches or 65 centimeters. Then to aid that.
So not only is it huge, but has really thick armor. So, okay, defense-wise, it's great, but I can't imagine how much fuel or energy it takes just to move that thing. Because the fuel consumption would be crazy. Not just itself, but the fact that it's carrying so many ships, like a Aegis cruiser, fighters, things like that, that takes a lot of fuel. So the fact that it's able to reinforce and carry that many things is great. But however, my question is, how far can it travel just on one fuel tank or one fuel storage, or whatever you like to call it, without refueling? And the maintenance on that thing, wow. I mean, it sounds like a logistical nightmare just to like maintain that thing.
That armor in deflecting incoming blows, much of the ship's hull is sloped. The ship itself has a max crew of 476, with habitation for all. Now, this is likely reflective of the Bengal having a larger capacity than 476, just that it has 476 stations on the ship, meaning the average Bengal could have crews of over 1,000 in certain conditions. Given the size of the ship, it's also difficult for that personnel to move around, and as such, the Bengal actually has its own tram system to allow the crew to quickly move through the ship. It's also stated
1
that
kilometer.
The ship was designed to be as self-sustaining as possible.
Imagine you're staying on one side of the ship and your shift starts on the other side of the ship. You got to travel a kilometer every single day just to get there. I mean, hey, it's good exercise and good cardio, but there's just gonna be one of those days where you're like, oh my god, I gotta go to work, but it's all the way over there.
With an average of 20 years worth of fuel. The engines and power plant of the ship.
Oh, so he answered
an
it.
average of 20 years worth of fuel. The engines and power plant of the ship are classified.
Damn, I
But
thought it was
some
gonna be only a
sources
few
say
months,
that the ship
but-
runs on a bespoke antimatter reactor, which is orders of magnitude more efficient than typical fusion reactors that power other larger naval vessels.
Okay, you know what? He answered my question because I thought it was gonna be a logistical nightmare, but they had something really great to combat that. Because if they did not have that, and they were just like running on just regular fuel, like how we would fuel a truck or a car or a plane, that thing would not last long in the air and it has to keep on coming down to be refueled and going back up.
Which may account for the longevity of the Bengal. It's also not hard to believe that a ship like the Bengal is designed to meet all the needs of the crew, with any amenities a starman in deep space patrol may need to not only survive, but keep morale high. Though this is a supposition at this point, and no interior layout of the ship is yet available. The Bengal carrier has since become a staple of the UAE Navy, practically the poster child of the new UAE itself, with its iconic silhouette plastered over recruitment ads and posters all over the empire. While we don't know how many of these supercarriers are in service, we do know that they have continued to roll out of the RSI shipyards of Earth and Killian ever since their first release in 2871. We do know of at least 2 different Bengals in service, the first being UES Krugeri of the 2nd Fleet 65th Battle Group under the command of Captain Thomas Wade. The second is the UES Barbary, which is the Bengal that anchors the battle group responsible for the protection of Stanton.
The names aren't
possibly
really that
operating
familiar
out
for
of
me.
Jericho Station near Microtech. This is the main Bengal carrier we see in game now during the Invictus celebrations.
Oh, the Barbary.
These 2 ships do point to the fact that Bengals are named after cats from Earth's history.
The Bengal
first
tiger.
probably being the UES Bengal in reference to the Bengal cat of Asia. The Krugeri is named after a South.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet they're referring to the Bengal tiger because the very first time I heard of the name U.S. Bengal, the Bengal tiger really did pop into my memory. So that it really is a good fitting name for this ship.
South African lion, and the Barbary after a North African lion which is now extinct. Future ships will likely keep this naming convention. Bengals have been described as the tip of the spear for the UAE Navy, and it's not hard to see why. The ship plays a pivotal role in not only defense against external and internal defense, but that of morale and public confidence. Its imposing size and distinctive shape make the Bengal carrier a statement of might and power of the UAE. I'd like to thank you for watching.
Yeah,
I'd
but
like to
one
thank
goes
those who are on
down,
screen
then it's
now
a
for
huge
supporting
blow to the
channel
morale.
financially. If you want to throw in a few credits, think about becoming a member on YouTube. And if you want a bit more for your contribution, join the Patreon. Patreons get early ad-free access to all videos, including exclusive early access to my long-running Complete History of Star Citizen lore series, whose 3 episodes are now available for everyone to view. If you want to know what you're getting, check out the playlist in the top right. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on the Bengal carrier and any other lore topics in the comments below. And as always, remember, ex Historia ad Astra.
Very great video and very informative about the RSI Bengal carrier. But like I said, everything is great about it, but the first thing that always appears like in my mind is like the maintenance and the logistics of the ship. Like how is it going to be fueled? How long can it last with just one go on fuel? But answered it at the end, 20 years, and has some sort of like antimatter, crap, I don't remember off the top of my head, some sort of generator, things like that, or reactor, but that's really good. And yeah, because of its size and imposing intimidation look, it is a great morale boost for the UEE. People will be we'll be happy to see that it's on its side. But however, if that ship goes down, then it's going to be a huge blow to morale. But this was really great, and AstroHistorian did answer all my questions that I have. So that's what I really like about AstroHistorian. He's very informative, and he like literally knows what the audience would ask. So he says it all in the video. So like I said, shout out and credit goes to the AstroHistorian. He is amazing. He said he had 20,000 subscribers when this video came out. I'm looking at it right now. He has 35.6 subscribers as of today. So he really deserves every single one of those views and subscribers. And this is a really great ship, and there are more videos coming along. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that notification bell so you know when I drop another video. And also shout out to all my members, subscribers, viewers. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your support, guys. I really do appreciate it. So without anything else, I'll see you guys next time.